Hello students, this is Geethanjali. In the last class we did protista, and in this video we'll be doing fungi. So NCERT says that fungi is the most unique kingdom of heterotrophic organisms, and let us know why. Okay, we find fungi almost everywhere, on decaying matter, on rotten bread or fruits, etc. And that is why they are called cosmopolitan. Okay, they have the ability to be present at many places, right? Because their habitat is very diverse, and there are only two conditions that they require, that is warm and humid. Okay, so the place should be warm and atmosphere should be humid. So if only these two conditions are satisfied, they can grow there. So since the conditions are very less, so they're almost present everywhere where the condition is favorable. Now, coming to the structure, we know that fungi is multicellular eukaryote, but there's an exception, that is yeast. So yeast is unicellular, and we know that yeast is famous for its use in fermentation, right? Now, coming to the actual structure. So fungi is basically made of mycelium, which is a mesh-like structure. So you can see this mesh-like structure, and this is called the mycelium. This mycelium is made up of something called hyphae. This hyphae is nothing but long thread-like filaments, and this hyphae contains arrangement of cells, okay, and they can be arranged in two ways, and we call it septate or aseptate. So in aseptate, there is no septum separating the nucleus, and hence it is called xenocytic. Okay, and next is septate. So there is a septate, there's a compartment between all the nucleus, and that's why it looks like there are individual cells. Coming to the nutrition, as we all know, fungi are mainly saprophytic, parasitic, and symbionts too. So in symbionts, examples like lichens and mycorrhiza are seen. Now, reproduction takes place in three modes: vegetative, asexual, and sexual. In vegetative mode, we find many modes again. Fragmentation, budding, binary fission, etc. are seen in fungi, and asexual reproduction. So in asexual reproduction, we see special spores called asexual spores, and these spores are haploid in nature, and they perform mitosis to form a haploid mature fungi. So fungi are basically haplontic in nature. Their main body is haploid in nature. Okay, they have only n number of chromosomes present in them, not 2n, not diploid. So these special spores which are there, they differentiate through mitosis and form the mycelium of the mature fungi. Next, coming to sexual reproduction. We know that there are gametes, okay, which fuse. So, so these gametes, when they fuse, these gametes are N. They form a structure which is zygote, okay, and in this zygote there are N plus N number of chromosomes. And later on, the nucleus too fuses, and we have 2N number of chromosomes, right? So this process here, the fusion of the protoplasm, or you can say the fusion of the cytoplasm, is called plasmogamy. Okay, whereas the fusion of the nucleus here, nucleus of the gametes, is called karyogamy. Okay, and there is an intermediate stage over here, very important to know, that is the dikaryophase, and this structure is called a dikaryon. Okay, and later this 2N zygote forms a special mycelium, And on this partial mycelium, we get sexual spores. Sexual spores because they form because of fusion of gametes. That's why we call them sexual spores. And these sexual spores are formed by meiosis. Here we saw that the asexual spores were formed by mitosis, but here the sexual spores are formed by meiosis. So that's an important point to know. So sexual spores that are formed from meiosis, these are again n in number because meiosis leads to halving of the chromosome number. So n number of chromosomes are present here, and this again differentiates through mitosis to form the haploid main fungi or fungal body, right? So this is how sexual reproduction takes place in fungi. Now coming to the various classes present in fungi. First one is phycomycetes. Okay, phycomycetes is said to be the most primitive class of fungi, and these are the only class which are aquatic in nature. Are also found in on dead substances, right? On things like wood, logs, and all that. As I told you, there are two types of mycelium, that is septate and aseptate. They have aseptate type, that means cenocytic, right? And the asexual spores that are found in them, there are two types, okay? One is zoospores. These zoospores are motile in nature because they have a flagella, okay? And one more is aplanospores. These aplanospores are non-motile in nature because they do not have flagella. So asexual takes place through these two types of spores, and as I told you, these spores are formed on special mycelium which we call as fruiting bodies, okay? So these fruiting bodies on which this special asexual spores, that is zoospores and aplanospores, are formed in phycomycetes, this is called sporangium, okay? And these are formed inside the fruiting body, and that is why we call this endogenously produced asexual spores. That means they are formed inside the fruiting body, right? Next, sexual reproduction that takes place through three ways, and first one is isogamy. So isogamy takes place when similar gametes fuse, okay? When similar gametes fuse, we call it isogamy, okay? It can be either motile or non-motile, okay? When there are dissimilar gametes, okay? Suppose there's one large one and there's one small. So when there is dissimilar gametes fusing, we call it anisogamy. And oogamous means there is one large female gamete and there is one small, okay, but motile male gamete. So this is the female gamete and this is, sorry. So this is the female gamete and this is the male gamete. So when this happens, it is called oogamous. So all these three types are found in phycomycetes. And when the fusion happens, there is a structure which forms in all these three cases, and we call it the zygospore. Just like how we say zygote is formed, here we just call it zygospore. Now coming to the important examples of phycomycetes, okay, mucor is one example, and rhizopus, which we famously know as bread mold, and one more that is called albugo, and this albugo is a parasite present on mustard. Coming to ascomycetes, the next class, and this class is famously called as sac fungi, okay? And it includes morels and truffles. You can see here, you have morels and truffles. So these morels and truffles are edible and they are exotic. They are considered as delicacies. They're exotic food, okay, that present, they are used in dessert and many food items. So ascomycetes, again, we know that fungi in general are saprophytic, parasitic, and they're also decomposers. Now, the ones that grow on dung are called corpophilous, okay? Corpo here refers to the dung, so phyllis means they're growing there, right? So corpophilous means they grow on dung. And the type of mycelium present here is septate and branched. So unlike phycomycetes, they have branched and septate mycelium. Now they also have asexual spores, and these asexual spores are called conidia. Okay, these conidia are formed on a fruiting body called conidiophores. Okay, conidiophores. Since they are formed on it, that means outside, okay, on the fruiting body, they are exogenously produced. Okay. Next, coming to sexual spores that we find in ascomycetes, these sexual spores are called ascospores, and they are formed endogenously. That means they're formed inside the fruiting body. So the fruiting body, ascocarp it is called, it contains sacs, okay? It contains sac-like structures which are called asci, okay? And in this asci, the ascospores are formed. So they are formed inside the sac, and that is why it is called endogenously produced sexual spores, right? So the important examples of ascomycetes: Aspergillus, Claviceps, Neurospora, Penicillium, and Saccharomyces. So Saccharomyces, we know that this is the scientific name of yeast, and Penicillium is a famous antibiotic. Neurospora, this is called the Drosophila of plant kingdom. Okay, why is it called so? Because just like Drosophila, this too is used for extensive genetic research. Okay, genetic and biochemical research. Now, the next class, that is Basidiomycetes. This is famously called club fungi because you can see this puffballs. This is called puffballs, and this is called the bracket fungi. You can see their shape is usually in the form of a club, right? So that is why they're called club fungi. They grow on soil, tree stumps, okay, sometimes on logs also, etc. And the parasitic form of basidiomycetes are called rusts and smuts, okay, and they have branched and septate mycelium just like ascomycetes. And important points about basidiomycetes is that they do not have asexual spores. So the only way of asexual reproduction in them is through fragmentation. Okay, and they also do not have sex organs. Okay, so does that mean they do not have sexual reproduction? No, they do have sexual reproduction, just that they do not have sex organs and hence they cannot even produce gametes. So if they can't produce gametes, how is the zygote going to be formed? So here zygote formation is not direct. So we have the mycelium present, okay? So instead of the gametes fusing, the two mycelium directly fuse together instead of the gametes fusing. So they directly form this dikaryon, dikaryotic phase without the involvement of sex organs. And this again, this 2n structure, which is this n plus n structure which is there, it forms fruiting body. So there, the zygote used to form the fruiting body. Here, this dikaryotic phase, this dikaryon is forming the fruiting body. So the sexual spores that are present in this basidiomycetes is called basidiospores. And these basidiospores are formed on the fruiting body, and that is why they are exogenously produced. And the fruiting body here is called the basidocarp, basidocarp, and this too has sac-like structures called basidia. And on this basidia, the basidiospores are produced, and that is why it's exogenously produced. And again, some important examples. Agaricus, we know agaricus is basically mushroom. And we have Rustilago, the scientific name of smut fungi. And we have Puccinia. So Puccinia is a rust-causing fungi in wheat. So we see that sometimes the wheat get rusted. So that is because of Puccinia. Next, coming to the last class, that is the deuteromycetes. So the deuteromycetes are septate and branched, just like the other two classes we just saw, and they decompose litter, okay? So, and hence they help in the recycling of minerals. Here, the asexual spores that we find in them are conidia, just like how we saw in ascomycetes. And there it was exogenously produced. Here also it is exogenously produced on conidiophores. Now, one important point, very important point, is that sexual reproduction is completely absent in deuteromycetes, and that is why they are called imperfect fungi, okay, or imperfectile fungi. So even if by chance they find any organism that is placed in deuteromycetes having sexual stages, they shift it to other classes. So there is no chance of finding sexual reproduction in any organism belonging to deuteromycetes. So the important examples of deuteromycetes are Alternea, Colectotrichum, and Trichoderma. So this was about fungi and all the classes under it.